but if you didn't remind me, I would have forgotten. So I'm going to do that right now because
Thank
I'm
you.
going to forget. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you.
Great. For those that have just joined us, we're going to get started in about 4 minutes. Thank you. And we're going to get started in about 1 minute. Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to December 13th edition of the AWS User Groups of Florida virtual meetup. So just to recap, the AWS User Groups of Florida We've been operating in virtual mode for about 18 months now. Starting in December, we're going to attempt to do an in-person meetup in Fort Lauderdale. More to come on that. But we're always open to feedback from the community on content and formats. What other things you'd like to see in terms of topics? Would you like to present on a particular topic that catches your interest? After the meetup, please feel free to collaborate with us. You could do so through our Slack channel, through SlideShare, where we'll post the presentation, or through YouTube, where we will post a recording of tonight's event. So tonight's format, we're going to get to the main event here in a moment. Attendees are automatically muted. Feel free to ask questions or respond in the window throughout the session, and we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. So as a sidebar, Cloud Adhesive, one of the sponsors of the AWS User Groups of Florida, is looking to bring on more folks into our team. Feel free to check out our website, cloudadhesive.com/careers. And we have, I believe, 18 job postings now, most in the South Florida market. So for tonight's meetup, we have Devin and Eduardo, who are solutions architects with Amazon Web Services. They're going to tell us about AWS Control Tower. And next month, as I mentioned, we're going to do a recap of reInvent. So reInvent's AWS's annual event, dozens of tracks and thousands of sessions. There's likely something that interests you. Throughout those sessions, there's a number of launch announcements. Those are the exciting bits and pieces. And so we're going to have a meetup next month in Fort Lauderdale in person on the 6th. And then we're going to do a remote one like tonight's session on the 13th, both Thursdays. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Eduardo and Devin, and they'll take us through Control Tower. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Really appreciate that. And thank you, team, as well. The Cloud Adhesive team is good to be here. And thank you for having us. We really appreciate that. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eduardo. So I'm going to share my screen real quick. And I will appreciate your confirmation as soon as you see the screen. You should see just the
screen is loaded.
Awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate that. So again, good afternoon. My name is Eduardo Oliveira, and I'm a solutions architect with AWS. With me is my partner, Devin Patterson. Devin, if you would like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Eduardo. Hello, everybody. My name is Devin Patterson, another solutions architect focused on customers here in South Florida. Really appreciate everybody joining us today, and we look forward to diving into Control Tower. Back to you, Eduardo.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, super happy to be here. And to be honest, we are actually really like the audience that we have been through over these meetups. So we will enjoy this time with you. And as Patrick mentioned, we have a Q&A space at the end, but feel free just to put your questions on the chat. Devin will be assisting me while I go through the presentation, and then when we switch over to Devin, I will be taking care of those questions. So with that said, we also just wanted to let you know that we are covering the South Florida area, so we are local for those who are around. And well, with all else, let's just go to the deck. And today we are going to talk about Control Tower, which is essentially a tool just to govern multi-accounts in AWS environments. All right, so first, let's start with a basic concept, which is essentially like a house. Building a solid foundation makes it easier for you to scale in your structure and create more floors, and of course, expand your ecosystem, right? And it is not different when we talk about technology. Creating a strong foundations and architecture is key on AWS in order just to manage, govern, and control your assets, right? So that is why we are here really just to talk about Control Tower. So for the agenda today, we are going to cover 4 main topics. The first one is about management and governance. The second about services integration and guardrails. the third about provisioning and operations, and finally, a control tower examples. Now, management and governance. Control tower has three principal steps, which are the enable, which essentially is to activate the control tower, the AWS organizations in order to manage and govern your environments. You can also use AWS budgets and just to stay informed about how much you're doing and your costs and what is the progress. And of course, you can leverage tools such as License Manager if you would like to manage your software licenses from vendors. The second phase is about provisioning, which essentially leverages services such as CloudFormation, Service Catalog, and OpsWorks in order to deploy infrastructure as code or Chef and Puppet stacks across your environments, essentially across accounts. And finally, the operate that leans on services such as CloudWatch, CloudTrail, Config, Systems Manager, and the cost and usage suite in order to operate and monitor and control your assets. These steps are always supported by security mechanisms, best practices, and fine-grained access control that Control Tower will provide to you in a model that will actually provide you business agility without losing governance and control, which at some point seems difficult, right? But many organizations are actually thinking that they have to choose between the agility or governance, but with Control Tower, you can actually have both, right? So when we talk about agility, by leveraging self-service access and deployments, you can explore and experiment fast with the most innovative suite of AWS services, such as IoT, machine learning, serverless frameworks, and of course, serverless services, and much more. And the second one is about governance, right? By establishing security best practices and compliance controls, reduced burden on operations by leveraging those serverless services and actually also automation services that connect each other with other AWS services. And of course, the spend management, allocation, and budgeting for those services that you are utilizing. You can essentially put and control those projects that you have in your organization just to innovate or probably try something new. AWS Power is a solution to help customers to quickly set up a new AWS environment for multiple accounts, and you can actually save time by automating the setup of your environment in line with the AWS best practices and recommendations that are already built into this service. So with Control Tower, you receive a baseline environment that actually helps you to get started with the multi-account architecture, right? So in the past, essentially, customers probably created isolated accounts, and then they had to tie each other over VPC peering, so really difficult. But again, with Control Tower, this multi-account architecture is easier, and you can actually implement identity and access management services and governance, data security. You can implement network design for that organization, and of course, logging across your accounts. So this solution is built to help customers to set up this new environment, but also became very popular to support production implementations for large-scale migrations, as we have seen in the past on customers who are migrating from on-premises to AWS. And to be more concise, Control Tower essentially enables you to set up an AWS landing zone, right? Of course, centralize identity and access, establish guardrails for security, compliance, and operations, automate compliant account provisioning over the account factory, and of course, manage continuously over time. And this looks nice, but how much time will it take to build this, right? With AWS Control Tower, you can actually deploy your environment in just about an hour, right? So what you get is an automated landing zone, You get the guardrails, which are predefined rules to help with compliance, and you get an account factory in which you can create new accounts or enroll existing accounts into Control Tower. You get centralized dashboards for visibility into the accounts across each region. And with the built-in integration with AWS SSO, which is the single sign-on, customers get centralized location for the identity and access management. And you can also integrate into partner solutions such as Okta, OneLogin into that SSO dashboard. You also get pre-configured log, archive, and audit accounts. We will talk more about that in future slides. And also you get a built-in monitoring and notifications on automatic updates for your Control Tower. But it is more easier if we can show you high-level architecture of how this looks like actually. So this base architecture or foundation is what AWS Control Tower provides you who customers who want to enable a multi-account organization. So essentially, you in the top level, you will see the management account, which is the first account that you create, that you open in AWS. And by actually enabling Control Tower and enable organizations, you will get essentially your first ecosystem that can be integrated with single sign-on. And essentially, you will get a deployment over CloudFormation and service catalog. And just let me go here, put my laser pen, pointer options. There you go, right? So enabling Control Tower will essentially leverage organizations and single sign-on, right? This will be in one shot. And then Control Tower, of course, is a service that has all the baseline security, baselines, and best practices that are being pushed, as I mentioned before, and over the CloudFormation stack sets. And of course, Service Catalog, which actually is the service that holds the account factory just to create your baseline accounts. And then within organizations, you will get Core OU, which essentially is an organizational unit in which you can place AWS accounts, and custom OUs. You can have as many as you require just to segregate your environments. And then what happens is you will get this OU materialized, right? For instance, you get the log archive account, you get the audit accounts in this single OU, which is the core, because essentially these are functional accounts for your organization. And then you have provisioning accounts, could be production, development environment, sandbox, that are being put into different organizational units, right? So this is just a pretty basic high-level architecture of how Control Tower will look like when you first deploy the service. Services integration and guardrails. So there are two pieces in these slides. One is regarding the account management, which is on the left side, in which we see AWS services who facilitate that task, such as organizations, which essentially is to govern and organize the AWS accounts that you deploy over the account factory. You have the Amazon VPC to segment your network communication between accounts and environments. You have the CloudFormation and Service Catalog just to deploy infrastructure or activate services over infrastructure as code templates. And of course, the single sign-on just to authorize your teams to access these AWS accounts that you created and govern over the organization service. The other piece, which is on the right, is about guardrails. And we are talking about services such as CloudFormation, just to enforce security baselining in all your accounts or the accounts you create, the Systems Manager to baseline virtual servers, or Security Hub just to perform security best practices checks, aggregate alerts, and automated remediation. And when we talk about automated remediation, we are essentially talking about enforcement that can be achieved with CloudTrail, Config, CloudWatch, and Lambda. You can enforce these guardrails, but also you can react on changes in your infrastructure and automate remediation. For those who are familiar with this suite of services, you will know that essentially it's a system that over tracking your API calls, you can track changes in your environment, and hence you can trigger over the CloudWatch and AWS Lambda remediations, notifications, or execute piece of code that will help you on remedy a certain situation. But what are exactly these guardrails? Guardrails are pre-configured governance rules for security, compliance, and operation. These are preventive guardrails which prevent policy violations through enforcement implemented using AWS CloudFormation and SCPs, which essentially are service control policies, right? You will have, for instance, detective guardrails, which essentially detect policy violations and alert in the dashboard. And of course, you will have implemented config rules that will help for that endeavor. And then if we talk about mandatory and strongly recommended guardrails, it's essentially guardrails that will actually will protect your environment from deleting or disabling certain features within your services. And there is like a great number of service control policies, which essentially are guardrails displayed in the control tower pane that you can enable. And of course, you can design your own depending on your organization needs, right? So what happens here in this slide is that you essentially will rely on the organizational units that are provided by organizations, and these service control policies will be applied to these organizational units, will impact to all the AWS accounts that you put in, or you can also apply these service control policies to individual accounts if needed, okay? So this is essentially what it means about the guardrails. And if we go to the next slide, essentially you will see a couple of examples of what Control Tower will provide to you. You will see the strongly recommended, you will see the mandatory and elective. We are talking about essential things such as enable MFA for the user of your account, right? When we talk about root user, we are talking about the email address that you use to create the account, the AWS account. Remember, there's a very powerful user. Essentially, it could delete your account, right? So you need to protect it. And this guardrail is meant to make you aware that this is very important. As we talk about also from S3, just to disallow public access and read access on the files that you put in, and so on. Now, if we talk about identity and access, of course, we are talking about SSO, which is AWS single sign-on. By default, you will get the service enabled with the Control Tower suite, and you can integrate, of course, with your Active Directory. If you're managing Active Directory domains, you can connect to your SSO over AD integrations. So that makes you easier just to include your organization federation to access the AWS accounts. And of course, as we mentioned before, you can integrate with services such as OneLogin or Okta and so. Now, about the automate compliance and account provisioning, I think this is one of the most important features within Control Tower, and essentially is the account factory, right? So it doesn't matter if you have a pretty good foundation, if you're still constructing things, but you are not following any security best practices or any best practices at all, right? So, but this comes with Control Tower is this account factory that will help you to create new accounts on your behalf with the best practices provided by AWS. Also will include security best practices over the guardrails that we just saw before. And then the service, essentially what we'll do is we'll leverage AWS Service Catalog, and essentially we'll apply network baseline, we'll apply CIDR if you choose to do so, and network regions in which you would like to operate with that account. Also, you will choose to put on certain organizational unit within AWS organization, which will facilitate to you just to put that account in a restricted environment as soon as it appears in your organization. And of course, all the baseline that already comes with enabling Guardrails and all the configuration change tracks in your accounts. That happens essentially is that you this process could take, depending on how much you deploy on it, could take 1 hour or less or a little bit more. But what you get is a baseline out-of-base account ready to operate, put in a certain organizational unit, depending on what you use. Could be sandbox, production, or development, and then you can easily enable access over single sign-on just to make your teams access that account in no time. Now, Devin, I think you will cover provisioning operations, right? So I will lead to you, and I will be taking care of questions in the chat if there are any. All yours, Devin. You're on mute, by the way.
Thanks, Eduardo. Appreciate it. Yep, let me take over the screen share.
Sure. In the meantime, if anyone has any question, please feel free to put your question in the chat. I will do my best just to address or reply to your question as soon as possible.
All right. Well, so we've talked about, Eduardo went in detail about guardrails and governance, and really what I like to think of as the, kind of the skeleton, the infrastructure for Control Tower. Now, once you have it provisioned, the actual core components of Control Tower, then you'll be able to actually roll out accounts within the environment. And really the core component for account provisioning is that of AWS Service Catalog. So Service Catalog is a self-service portal where you can actually provision not only accounts, but other resources within AWS accounts underneath your organizational umbrella. So when we talk about users or administrators of Service Catalog in the environment of Control Tower, there's 3 personas. So we have the AWS Control Tower administrator. So this is the persona that actually provisions Control Tower, creates the account factory, and makes it a product within Service Catalog. Then you have Service Catalog administrators. So these are individuals that create products, which are either accounts or resources, or they create portfolios, which is a collection of resources that can then be consumed by our third persona, which is the Service Catalog end users. So now that these things have been created in Service Catalog, the end users can then, from a separate portal, an end user facing portal, they can provision accounts and they can provision resources. And I think one of the most beautiful things of Service Catalog is that the end user doesn't actually need permissions in AWS to deploy those resources. That's all built into this to the functionality. And this really empowers DevOps with Service Catalog. So we take a look at an example here with a company in the life sciences industry, Bristol Myers Squibb. When they moved to Service Catalog, deploying a website as well as deploying a serverless application went from 6 weeks of work down to it's only 30 minutes of work. And not only to do that, it also enabled them to put those guardrails that Eduardo talked about in place, so that these products had already been reviewed by their information security department, and that was a bulk of that 6 week worth of work, was reviews and making sure that what was being deployed was in line with their organization's security posture. So operating with agility and control with Control Tower, there's 4 main aspects. First, customers want to monitor and get visibility into how their resources and applications are being used and how they're performing. Then they want to make sure it's auditable. Everything from how those resources are being configured to which users are accessing them and what policies are being enforced. And third, they want to take operational action on those resources to manage them at scale, logically group them and automate operational tasks safely and securely at scale. And of course, they want to continue to optimize and analyze to reduce cost, improve efficiency and security posture. So just to be able to continue to iterate through this deployment and improve it. So Control Tower has what's called lifecycle events. So these are events that are logged when different actions are taken within Control Tower. So the purpose is to mark the completion of those actions and a state change of a resource. And for each lifecycle event, the event log shows whether the original Control Tower action completed successfully or failed. Each lifecycle event is also delivered in Amazon Event Bridge, which adds additional capabilities, and Amazon CloudWatch event service, which is a component of CloudWatch, a monitoring solution within AWS that actually can take action on specific API call events. So because a lifecycle event registers the completion of an AWS Control Tower action, you can create an Amazon Event Bridge rule or CloudWatch event rule that can trigger the next steps for your automation workflow, which we'll dive into an example here in a minute, based on the state change of those lifecycle events. So let's walk through an example of a particular lifecycle event, that of create managed account. So what's happened here is you have Control Tower deployed, you have the AWS Service Catalog set up with your account factory, and an administrator goes to launch an account. That account is deployed separately, and that triggers this create managed account lifecycle event. So what you can do is configure a CloudWatch event rule to trigger a Lambda function, which is that serverless single instance of compute that we have in AWS. That can then launch a CloudFormation stack, which is our infrastructure as code tool set, which then can deploy a stack set, which is a collection of CloudFormation resources, which can then trigger the deployment of resources into that newly provisioned account. So very powerful here. Now not only have you automated the account provisioning process, but you've also automated deploying resources into that account. So identity and access management roles, maybe VPCs, or maybe you want to have flow logs. So we'll talk about this in a minute. Maybe you want to have all the flow logs of the account, which is the kind of metadata about network traffic, pushed into a centralized logging account for security purposes. And you can also trigger customizations directly. So again, other resources can be deployed. Guard Duty, Security Hub, which Eduardo touched on. So let's get into some examples and maybe some best practices around Control Tower. So when you are working with the multi-account approach, you want to have this kind of logical grouping of resources. So here illustrated is the log archive account, which is very important. And you can see with the dotted blue line, the flow of logs from sandbox accounts, development, production, everything flowing to a centralized location. And that's going to be very powerful for not only for security event remediation and investigation, but also if you have some compliance requirements. You can then you can meet those requirements with this centralized logging platform. So that's the flow of logs, this one-way flow. But then we have the representation of network connectivity. So this is something that could be bidirectional, but these are kind of the recommended network connectivity deployed in the account. So you may have your data center linked into pre-prod and shared services. And then you'll have shared services connected to several different accounts. And I know this is a logical representation, but there would be several different network components such as AWS Direct Connect, VPN tunnels, so on and so forth. All right, so the starter AWS framework with Control Tower, it brings a few different OUs or organizational units within Control Tower. So first is that of the security OU, where you may have your log archive account, a read-only account for things for the security group, a security break glass account for if you have an incident, and then maybe you have an account specific for security tooling, which we'll talk about integrating with Marketplace in a later slide. Then the infrastructure OU is where you might have some shared services such as directory services, and then maybe a specific network account where you could actually share network resources out to different accounts if you wanted to take that route. And then the additional OUs is that of Sandbox, which will have specific guardrails in place for things like a fixed spending limit, as well as disconnected from the network to prevent any issues with connecting with production resources. And then you would actually have your workload OUs. And if we expand on this, you can see we still have our security and infrastructure OUs, but then we could add additional OUs such as Sandbox. I'm sorry, we already talked about Sandbox and workloads, but maybe a staging account or a suspended OU where you move accounts before you decommission them, or an exceptions OU where you have specific exceptions to guardrails. Several different possibilities here, but this is a recommended multi-account framework. And there's a link that we can share. Eduardo, if you could share the link from the slide, I'd appreciate it. But there's a link here about guidance on OU recommendations. It's a very good read on structuring your OUs with Control Tower.
Sure, Devin.
Thank you. So I talked a little bit about Control Tower as a solution and integrating with the marketplace. This link here can be used for that, where you can view the different marketplace solutions that integrate with Control Tower. But some of the use cases are things like multi-account security, so adding additional layers of security with along with the services that AWS has to offer. Identity management, network management, and then when you get into operational excellence, things like security incident and event management tools, integrating with those to kind of push, maybe you push all of your logs to your log account and then ship that up to a SIEM that you use to add visualization, and then operational intelligence and cost management and governance. That's just some of the possibilities when you take a look at what we have to offer in the marketplace. All right, so we've talked about a lot. Let's just kind of summarize some of the key features. So Control Tower is going to give you that automated landing zone with the best practice blueprint. It's going to give you guardrails for policy management, so a lot of out-of-the-box functionality. It's going to give you that account factory in Service Catalog for provisioning new accounts. It'll give you a dashboard for visibility into Control Tower. It's going to give you built-in identity and access management. Kind of tying into that automated landing zone, you've got a pre-configured log archive for audit access to your accounts, and then built-in monitoring and notifications, and as Eduardo touched on previously, automatic updates on the platform itself. So, call to action or next steps, how to get started. There's some links here. One, just an overall getting started page for Control Tower. The next is that of we have some great labs around Control Tower that you can kind of get some hands-on practice before you go try this out in the real world. And then something I highly recommend is if you're already engaged with AWS and you have an account team, reach out to us, reach out to your account team, and we can set up maybe a Control Tower activation day or an immersive experience where you can dive even deeper with Control Tower and talk with your account team around getting this deployed and us helping you get the resources you need to do so. And then there's also some how-to videos. And I'll leave this screen up here for a moment. There's some codes that you can scan, but I'm not sure if we're going to be sharing the deck, but if we do, the links are in there as well.
Yeah, and in the meantime, Devin, I think that we really did a good job going over the presentation, and we still have 20 minutes left. I think that we are close to the Q&A section, but maybe what we can do is share the screen. I can show the screen actually and show how Control Tower actually looks like with the single sign-on, the dashboard, and all that. But what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let me leave this up here for one more minute, and then I'll stop the screen share, and then you can share that out, and we can navigate Q&A at the same time.
Awesome.
So Eduardo, from your, I know you came from ProServe. What was your
Yeah.
experience from customers with Control Tower and the adoption and what did they see as they kind of walked through implementation and what kind of power did it bring to their organization?
Oh, well, actually, pretty much all customers adopted Control Tower from the beginning, but the truth is that all these customers were migrating from on-prem to the AWS cloud, right? So actually, this feature make their lives easier just to concentrate all the accounts because they have their own structure in on-prem and they require this same kind of isolation, and of course they always looking to federate and have a transparent process just to get into accounts, deploy things and all that, and essentially Control Tower give them this ability to seamlessly integrate with other on-prem tools, right? When we talk about logging, right? So we are storing all logs into the log account. So if they can actually integrate their CM into that account and gather all the logs and process in on-prem as we have seen in the past. So essentially, Control Tower has become very powerful over these last years, and those customers, and also I believe those existing customers who are actually born in AWS, right? Because they maybe start with just one account, then they have 2, 3, 4, but they realize that they keep growing, and as they keep growing, they'll lose visibility in their environment, and then Control Tower comes in just to resolve that piece by allowing to integrate external accounts, which are essentially accounts that do not belong to the organization. Doesn't mean that they are not your account. You can have like 14
Right.
those.
Yeah, absolutely. You brought up a good point. Just to preempt some questions that might be on some of our customers on the call on their mind. What does that transition look like for customers that already have accounts deployed and maybe they want to start using Control Tower? How easy is that?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, it's pretty easy. And the thing is that, of course, as we talked before, Control Tower will provide you with an account factory, which will implement all the baseline security and guardrails. Of course, if you have an external account that is an existing account, those controls are not applied. So you can integrate into the Control Tower, but then there are several scripts that you can run that we can facilitate, so you can adequate that account into the same standards of the accounts that you created over the Control Tower. So essentially, the first step is really easy. Just invite the account into AWS organizations, and then follow a couple of scripts just to normalize your environment.
Sounds pretty straightforward.
Yep.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing now.
All right. I'm going to share screen real quick. I will make sure just to provide at least 10 minutes for questions. So let me see where I'm at. All right. Cool. All right. Let me know if you can see the screen. You should see something like a single sign-on with the AWS box in their AWS block. It's coming, right? All right.
It is slowly loading. Yep.
Trying, yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Not yet, right? There you go, I think.
You got it.
Yep, it's working now.
Awesome, great. So what we are looking right here is essentially the single sign-on service that was already enabled when I created my control tower environment. So here, I'm a couple of steps ahead, of course, but essentially what you're looking is how you will get into your control tower AWS environment, right? So what you will do is essentially to log in with your credentials, which can be integrated with your Active Directory. And then depending on your team or your ID, you will get access to one or several accounts, right? In my case, I have these accounts in which I can just go in and deploy services, manage, and do whatever I require. And for instance, what I'm going to do here is just going to the lab. This is in Spanish, but actually it's the lab, the main account that holds the control tower environment. But as you can see as well, you have the audit account, the log archive account, and network account. So even a shared services account, right? So this is depends on you and how you can how you want to improve your environment by segregating the different tasks and accounts, right? So going back to the main account and just going to the control tower service, essentially you can grab it from the search bar, control tower, and this is the dashboard, right? So here you will see how many organizational units have, how many accounts, and actually how many preventive and detective guardrails you have enabled in these accounts, correct? So if you move over your different options in the dashboard, you will see organizational units. You can create new OUs here. Um, you can actually look up into your accounts. You can see the email address, which organization they are located. Any states that is in failed section or not enrolled. There are a couple of things that actually helps you to visualize your current states with the accounts. You can go to the guardrails as well, see which is the list that you had available. Well, actually, who would like to apply to the different accounts, right? And of course, you have the account factory, essentially one of the rock stars of the service, right? Just by clicking enroll account, you will have the options to put an email address, right? Display name. You can deploy actually automatic identity and access for this account just for the first administration purposes, and of course put an organizational unit for your account, right? As I mentioned before, you can just, if it is like a sensitive account, you can just put it into organizational unit that has enough restrictions just to prevent that anyone will enable or create resources out of your consent, right? And then, of course, you have several other options. You can even maintain your control tower updated. This is a really good feature. In the past, this solution was known as a landing zone, and upgrading that service was quite well, actually requires significant amount of time, but now with Control Tower, you can just click the version that it has been released, and you can update it, or you can repair if you're experiencing anything that is not quite right into your environment. So this made it easier for customers to maintain the solution always up to date, and it has been a really good feature so far. Of course, you can see the different accounts that are designed for management, which is this one, of course, the main account, the log archive, the audit, right? And there is so much more to be sure, right, with Control Tower, we can have like an hour session, if you like. We can go through the login structure, how which are the services and features that are enabled in those new accounts you create, just to send those logs to a central repository, and then you can connect it to your own CEM. The same for the audit account. You can enable security services just to put share dashboards and understand how is your general compliance posture and what you need to fix. You can even leverage services such as Amazon Firewall Manager just to create and deploy security groups over the different accounts that you manage. That's a really good feature as well. So there is a lot of things to cover, and essentially Control Tower helps to maintain and control your accounts within a single place. So this is what I would like you to see. As you can see, the dashboard is pretty easy to understand. It doesn't have so many sections, so you can understand where you're going in terms of the different features, right? OUs, accounts, account factory, guardrails, and actually it helps a lot just to control all what you have in AWS. And now, as I promised, we still have 9 minutes. I would like to hear any questions, if there are any, and David and I will love to hear as well if there are no questions. And if you're using Control Tower, what is your experience so far? Or if you have any other questions related to the services that are being leveraged by this Control Tower? No questions so far? Let me go to the deck one more time.
Not a question, but with support added for Terraform in Control Tower, are you able to talk a little bit about that? I think that was announced at reInvent 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. So actually, I don't have a really deep dive update on that front. But of course, we have heard from customers that the inclusion of Terraform for characteristics such as Control Tower was really desired, essentially because most of the deployments over Control Tower are being done, as we mentioned before, CloudFormation, or if you're using OpsWorks and all that. I actually don't have the detail to share with you, but I would love to go in. Actually, just share all I can
Yeah,
have.
I can speak to it a little bit.
Awesome.
Yeah, so essentially it's the ability to kind of provision these resources from Terraform. So now you'd have the capability of having essentially a control tower module where you could provision these resources, add accounts, actually deploy customizations as deployments into accounts. So it opens up that possibility, which was a major blocker for some of our customers, that if you're not a CloudFormation shop, if you are all in on Terraform, now you can take advantage of the capabilities of Control Tower and adding those guardrails in. So for me, it was a very powerful release. I know that team worked very hard on getting it deployed, but if anyone has any more questions about that, please feel to reach out to us and we can get you some documentation or help out with next steps.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm trying to find, give me 1 second. I'm going to find the official name of that service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the meantime, again, I guess that I don't know if the audience, again, is using any kind of landing zone, maybe previous landing zone, or not using Control Tower at all. What do you think so far? Do you think it's a good to have in your organization? What do you think so far? Because it has been on the market quite a long time, though. So
I think I'll maybe speak to some of my experience and see if we could get the conversation started. So I think it works out really well for customers of ours that are new to AWS and sort of need a lot of that wiring put into place. We'll typically pair control tower with transit gateway, right? Which is obviously the call it enterprise network connectivity service. Obviously, that does it a little bit of a disservice. But like that's sort of the quick start, right? To especially like enterprise type customers who may have multiple workloads and want to get up and running very quickly.
yeah, definitely. As I mentioned before, as part of the professional services, enabling all those features, even the network account, we transit gateway on all the features just to share content or communicate between accounts has been a really good advantage overall in their environments. And essentially, there's a couple of new features that are being used a lot, which are the customizations for control tower. So customers have understood the benefit of creating accounts over the account factory with all the baseline and all that. Then they wanted to go a step further in terms of what if we put architecture services on top of them, right? So and that's when customization for control tower came, and essentially by leveraging the CloudFormation service catalog, now you can create your own templates just to deploy standard infrastructure and services over those accounts. So that was a really good feature that has been very interesting in the couple of months as well.
And just to circle back, just to circle back, I dropped in the link. It's an account factory for Terraform. So that's the blog post about it and some details if anybody's interested.
Yeah, that is great. Thank you for sharing that, Devin. Awesome.
Absolutely.
All right. If there are no further questions, I don't know, Devin, would you like to tackle something else in these 3 minutes left?
No, I think we covered quite a bit. I guess we can pass it back over to you, Patrick. We appreciate the time and really enjoyed talking with everybody.
Yeah, thank you. By the way, Patrick, I will share with you, this is essentially a survey that we will like to share with you. We would like to hear your experience so far. I think it's good for us just to keep improving in our own material, but also in the meetups for the audience South Florida. So we will share this survey with you.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll go ahead and get that posted to the meetup. But thank you so much, Devin and Eduardo, for your presentation and demonstration tonight. I think we all found it quite insightful and informative. And thank you so much to the community for spending a little bit of your evening with us. And as always, don't forget, collaborate with us in our Slack team. And feel free to check back our meetup page in the next few days. We'll have the video posted and start posting the 2020 sessions. So thanks again, everyone, and enjoy your evening.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, everybody. Bye.
Have a good one.
Have a good rest of the day. Take care. Bye-bye.